It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to Monday's bonus podcast. We say Happy Veterans Day, Remembrance Day, and we invite you to stay with us for the next hour plus because we're going to go a lot of different directions with our Monday bonus podcast. The podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations in San Diego to serve you, and the new one that just opened in Orange County in Dana Point. You got projects, they've got materials. You need ideas, they can be your best friend, be your consultant. The name to remember when those projects come to get done, DIXIELINE Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. Man, we got a lot to talk about, going a lot of different directions, and we're going to argue about a few things today, I guarantee you.
Yeah, I mean, it's football all weekend, including Sunday night. It's just been a great sports weekend, and we're even talking baseball today, too.
Yeah, we're going to do that, and just a couple of reminders, a number of different business items I want to take care of before we get started. You're all on social media. I'm asking everybody, the more than 6,200 subscribers we have on live stream, I'm asking you to join my Twitter All-Star team on social media on X. Just type in my handle at Hacksaw1090, at Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. That way you'll know every time I put something up on my X Twitter account. Want you to subscribe to what we're doing on the podcast. You do that, you'll get the alerts because we put a lot of stuff up during the course of the week and on the weekend on our YouTube channel. And we want you to share. Tell everybody what we are doing on our podcast, etc. You like sports? Hey, check my website. When we're done with the podcast, just go to my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. It's all written. It's a summary of sports stories I guarantee you probably won't get anywhere else. And by the way, when you go to the website, there's a big orange box. I want you to join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You get special emails about things that we are offering as part of the Insiders Group. And agree or disagree with what we're going to say, that's okay. Because when we're done, you're going to take over this podcast. He invented it. Just explain to the new people how Fans Forum works, John.
Agree or disagree. If you got a comment or question in the world of sports for Hacksaw, type it in the live chat, Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get it here. We'll see it on the screen. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the conclusion of Hacksaw's Headlines.
Okay, we're going lots of different directions. It is the off season in Major League Baseball, and we're waiting for something to explode to start. And there's a lot of different stories in baseball that we're going to talk about. John, where do you want to start?
Let's go with the LA Dodgers, the world champs. They got some concerns over the roster.
Let's talk about where the Dodgers are right now. Yes, they have ordered their World Series rings. Yes, they have decisions to make as it relates to who's healthy, who's not, and how we're going to fill holes on the roster. And then this, at about midnight on Friday night, the Chiba Latte Marines in Japan, in Nippon Baseball, announced they're putting Roki Sasaki. They're going to post him. He will become an unrestricted free agent at age 24. He will negotiate over a 45-day window to come here to play Major League Baseball next season. And that opens the door for teams to go chase him. Now, his is a different situation. A year ago this time, Yash Yamamoto became a posted free agent. The Dodgers won the bidding war to get him out of Japan. He got a $300 million package. Dodgers had to pay his team, the Oryx Blue Wave, $50 million in a transfer fee to get him. That was because he was a vested veteran who had pitched. This guy is under 25. This guy has not reached the 6-year limit. This guy can only come here with the permission of his team, Chiba Latte Marines, and can only sign a minor league contract under the international pool amount. Somebody's going to get him for $2.5 million. It's the exact same contract that Ohtani signed when Ohtani got his release to come from Japan, and he wound up with the Angels. Who is Sasaki? 30-15 as a starter with a 2.10 ERA. 100-mile-an-hour fastball. He throws 3 pitches that are just superb. 505 strikeouts and 394 innings in Japan in about a 4-year span. All signs point to the Dodgers as possibly being the one that has the inside track. Why? Their history with pitchers that they brought from the land of the rising sun, the fact that they got Ohtani to meet with them, the fact they got Yamamoto to meet with him, and the fact that Hideo Nomo and Chan-Ho Park and some of the other Pacific Rim pitchers pitched in LA and Cansales pitched this guy. However, that being said, the Padres have Yu Darvish. The Padres have AJ Preller as a good working relationship with people in Japan. And the big money teams, the Mets on the East Coast and the Phillies, are also in the bidding. I think he's probably going to wind up with the Dodgers. People tell me, the baseball people that I network with, he's not a finished product yet, but there is so much upside to this 24-year-old pitcher. He's just dazzling. So that's story one. Sasaki, Dodgers, might it happen? We don't know when the window to negotiate is going to open, but the Dodgers already been there to scout him, as have the Padres, as have the Mets, as have the Phillies. Second item is Shohei Ohtani. The surgery is complete. Now the Dodgers have confirmed Ohtani will not pitch probably in the first half of next season. Why? Because he's going to spend the next 4 weeks as he begins his long rehab, 4 weeks in a sling, then 4 weeks with limited range of motion exercises, then 4 to 6 weeks of weight training work to strengthen the injured left shoulder, his non-pitching shoulder. It's going to be 12 weeks, probably 3 months, before he's going to be able to do any true baseball-related exercises. That's swinging bats. That's obviously soft toss. So he's not going to pitch at all. They do think he'll be ready on opening day. Conditioning is going to be an issue, though. He cannot run. They're not going to allow him to run for 8 to 10 weeks because of the jarring that would take place while he's running.
Interesting.
After the torn labrum surgery. So he's going to be behind the curve just a little bit. And then the third item with the Dodgers has to do, aside from Sasaki and Ohtani's rehab, has to do with what are they going to do with these pitchers who are unsigned free agents. Kershaw has opted out. Buehler was not offered the qualifying offer, so he is a street free agent. You could say, well, Buehler was 1-6, but Buehler threw 13 straight shutout innings at the end of postseason. That's one of the intangible reasons they won the World Series. So the Dodgers have those guys. The Dodgers have got Teoscar Hernandez that they got to deal with, and he's getting offers from a bunch of different people already. So the Dodgers are a little bit, even though they got the World Series rings ordered, the Dodgers are a little bit in flux. So, John, the Dodgers are making all the news on the field in October, and now they're kind of grabbing all the news in the month of November in this news cycle in Major League Baseball. An opinion.
The rich get richer is what it's looking like is going to happen. Dodger fan is convinced that Sasaki is coming to LA. Down on you, Padre fans, you're not going to get him. I love the whole idea of this internationalization of the sport, where they're bringing players in from all over the world. And we used to think of Japan as like a AAA level, but they're like legit. And there's a lot of great players. It's just weird how it's so hard for them to qualify to be able to be a free agent to come here. So hopefully the Padres are in on it. And at that price, I can imagine every team in Major League Baseball should be in on this guy.
Yeah, and he'll have his choice as to where he wants to go. But based on the Dodgers' ability to deal with pitchers in Japan and be very successful, and the fact they got Ohtani making phone calls and they got Yamamoto, who's back there now, you'd tend to think Dodger baseball for sure.
You know, it's the obvious choice for him. I mean, if he wants to come here, play on a winner, play on a team that's going to be friendly to his culture, have friends on the team. I mean, it sets up nicely, but San Diego ain't too bad as a second option.
I concur with you, but Dodgers, we got a ring here. Come be part of the next team that might go get a ring. So we'll see where this go once this window opens. So we go from those baseball stories. You get a comment you want to make on Ohtani in the rehab?
I just have a question on Ohtani. Let's assume he's all the way healthy. Are the Dodgers going to go with a 5 or a 6-man rotation at that point? Because I know you said they're going to kick off the season with a 6-man rotation.
I think they stay in a 6-man rotation because they have to handle him as a pitcher with kid gloves. And maybe they go back to Yamamoto in a 6-day rotation because that's where he excelled in Japan, whereas he came here last year And I don't know if they made a mistake, but they let him go into the regular rotation of 4 and 5 days rest, and then he injured the shoulder and was out 3 months. The Dodgers have already said 6-man rotation next season, 13-man pitching staff.
Is Flaherty coming back?
He's an LA guy.
But he's a street free agent, using your terms, right?
Exactly. But I think he's come home and he pitched really well, and they'll have to offer him bucks. There's no doubt about that. Again, they got some uncertainty with some of these pitchers. You know, I should have mentioned Flaherty in the same sentence with Buehler, and then the same sentence with Kershaw, and then they got Teoscar Hernandez that they got to deal with. So there's a lot of things in flux as it relates to the Dodgers right now. Now, baseball notes, we got other teams to talk about.
Okay, Padres, Yankees, Red Sox, and Cardinals.
Let's start with the Padres. It appears Ha-Seong Kim is gone. I hear the Giants are meeting with him this week. Now, Kim is a unique set of circumstances. A, because he's represented by Scott Boras, which means that price tag goes up. B, he's coming off his own torn labrum surgery. He might not be ready to play till June 1st. So the question is, what kind of contract gets structured for him? So stay tuned for that. Second item, Padres meetings are this week, might be today. AJ Preller, the CEO representing the Seidler Equity Group, Eric Grupner, the Padres CEO, to determine what the budget will be. If they kept everybody that was on this roster, because there's 7 guys that have to get pay bumps, if they kept everybody, John, the payroll would go from 169 to at least 203. I don't think they want to go over $200 million payroll. I think they'd much rather keep it in the 170 range. So they need to come up with a dollar figure, but then that's going to impact who stays, who goes. I believe Profar's gone. I believe Profar is going to ask for 3 years, $30 million, $10 million per. I don't think they're going to give a guy who had one great season, the rest of his life was a utility man. I don't think they're going to give him $10 million per year. So I think Profar and Kim are probably out the door. But they're not talking about it, but the Padres have reopened talks with the White Sox about pitcher Garrett Crochet. Now, he's somebody who's controllable for a couple of more years before he becomes a free agent. He's got electric stuff. However, the price is going to be steep. White Sox want 2 top prospects and an established major leaguer. I'm led to believe the Padres, if they get to that line in the sand to make the specific offer, are going to try to get the White Sox to say Cronenworth, and they're going to have to give up Campusano, and then they have to give up one of the top young pitchers. Now, I don't know that that's a great deal. It alleviates some of the money issue with Cronenworth's long-term contract, but you got to pay Crochet. But Crochet is obviously an established front of the rotation type guy. I think the big thing for the Padres is what do you do if you lose Higashioka to the Yankees, and that's one of the other rumors that he might be going back home. If you lose Higgy and you trade Campusano, what are you doing for your catcher next year? Because Salas is not ready. So the Padres, one thing might lead to something else. The other item, Padres just released 30 minor leaguers. They gutted the farm system of fringe guys, no real marquee names amongst any of the guys they let go, but that opens the window for them to go into the marketplace and sign some career 4A players, some guys that are on the open market coming off other clubs that maybe you give an opportunity to. AJ Preller's always been good finding those type of guys. So those are all the storylines as it relates to the Padres. Yankees, Juan Soto in Los Angeles, going to meet with Steve Cohen, the owner of the New York Mets, middle of this week. That's item 1. Yankees, meanwhile, have already had conversations with Peter Alonso. That's the fallback if Soto jumps ship and goes cross town to the New York Mets. Yankees have opened talks with former Angel and Philly closer Carlos Estevez. I think they're going to move on him pretty quickly. Their bullpen was kind of a weak part of everything last season. Red Sox, Teoscar Hernandez. So how does that bat look at Fenway Park to you?
Really good.
Yeah. So they're going after him. Red Sox reportedly are also interested in Blake Snell. However, Teoscar is asking for 3 years, $70 million. That's why I don't think the Dodgers are going to keep him. He made $23 million this past season. at 33 homers, 99 ribbies. But Teoscar, big bat, green monster, Fenway Park makes a lot of sense. And Blake Snell's price tags are going to come down. Nobody's going to pay him $31 million. I've been told 5 years, $155 million is what he might be trying to get to, but I think the realistic figure is 5 years, $125. Red Sox need a veteran anchor to the rotation because it was kind of a hodgepodge last season in a transition season. Blake Snell, I think, would be a good addition to the Boston Red Sox staff. Last one is the St. Louis Cardinals. This is kind of hard to believe, but they desperately need pitching. And they've got guys in the farm system that are coming who can play everyday position. They're shopping Nolan Arenado, the third baseman.
Wow.
The perennial power hitter, Gold Glove. Now, offensively, his statistics have tailed the last 2 seasons. He's also has some nagging injury problems. Still got time left on the clock. I think he's got 3 years left on his contract, a pretty pricey contract. But Cardinals are willing to move him if they can get some more young pitching there. So, John, you got Cronenworth on the trade block. You've got what the Yankees are going to do. You got the Teoscar situation. You got Soto. You got Arenado. The floor is yours.
Wow, so there's a lot there. I mean, Cronenworth in a package deal is kind of interesting. I agree with you. Ha-Seong Kim is gone. It is a nice fit for him in San Francisco. I mean, that could work out really well, and he's buddies with the center fielder there. So that could work. Wouldn't it be a huge drop off for the Yankees if they lose Soto after all these trades and giving up all this talent, and you end up with Pete Alonso as a fallback position? I mean, that's just a rotten place to be. The Arenado news is shocking, because it just seemed like, Cardinal fan really appreciated Arenado and everything he brought to the table. Why would they let him go? But seeing crazy things, people moving players around, getting their budget in line. Well,
getting the budget in line, but getting pitching. St. Louis, did not make the playoffs again. Their attendance has gone down 3 straight years. And the Cardinals farm system, which produced a lot of everyday players, notably a bunch of really good outfielders, all those guys have been traded or moved on. So Cardinals got to go get some pitching. Arenado might be the right place. Now they got to find somebody who's got multiple young arms that's willing to make that kind of deal. By the way, a sidebar on all the conversation about Teoscar, Fenway Park, Boston. If the Dodgers let him leave, the Dodgers are talking to Anthony Santander, the power hitting outfielder from the Orioles, and they're talking to Tyler O'Neill, ex-Cardinal, with the Red Sox last year, hit a bunch of home runs. I don't know who the Dodger outfielders are right now. I can't name Dodger outfielders right now if Teoscar vacates.
Yeah, and then you have no Mookie and Wright, and you're not sure who's playing center. So, I mean, just an embarrassment of riches there. But, Santander, that dude is legit.
Concur. So those are news and notes in baseball. So Fans Forum chat box is open. Looking for Dodger fans. Jump on board. Your reaction to Sasaki, Ohtani. You want to talk about these names we just posted on the board here in the Major League Baseball notebook? Jump on board now so you can get in line to ask baseball questions, make a statement during our Fans Forum segment. We move on from baseball. Let's go to the NFL.
The Chargers, they took care of business with the Titans.
Chargers 6-3. Everybody's feeling really happy. And now it's time to play real people. So the Chargers tore apart Tennessee. Justin Herbert. Is he hot? I mean, everybody around the National Football League is just talking about the young quarterback. He's got 11 touchdowns, 1 interception, busting big runs. Now, he's taken too many hits for my liking right now. The offensive front has not done very well. However, 7 quarterback sacks by the defense against a really bad Tennessee team, 6 tackles for losses. And they did that for the most part yesterday with virtually nothing from Joey Bosa and very minimal snaps because of a groin injury to Khalil Mack. So the Chargers right now as a team have really come together. That being said, next Sunday night, that's Joe Burrow's Cincinnati Bengals in town for Sunday Night Football against the Bolts. Following week, that is Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. The third week, they go to Atlanta to meet Kirk Cousins. The fourth week, Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City at Arrowhead. And the fifth week, Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay, and he expects to have both of his injured wide receivers back by then. So the next 5 weeks, put up, shut up time. The Bolts are playing real people. Yeah, it's nice to be 6-3. I understand that. but they've beaten the bottom of the barrel teams along the way, and now they get to play the big boys. And John Riley says,
That's like running the gauntlet.
oh, you got it?
They got to get through all these teams. I want to ask you about Quentin Johnson. I mean, I saw the touchdown pass to him yesterday.
He's come of age.
Yeah. Is he growing up? He's not dropping the ball as much?
I think he's only got 2 drops this season. They didn't target him very much yesterday against Tennessee. Did catch a touchdown. The week prior, he caught that 67-yard streak down the sidelines. He's running precise routes. He's so big. He's so tough, I think, for the cornerbacks to cover because he got such a size physicality advantage. And then yards after catch have become part of his game. So I think he's arrived. And there's no doubt Ladd McConkey as a route runner has arrived. We're waiting for Josh Palmer to become the big catch guy he's shown in flashes, but he's had so many nagging injuries. And they got this refugee tight end. Will Dissly came from Atlanta, who's become their primary pass-catching tight end. They've thrown the ball a lot more in the last 3 to 4 weeks. They've not run the ball with much consistency at all. You know, everybody was going crazy at the start of the season. J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, we pounded the football. Yeah, you pounded the Raiders. You pounded Carolina, 2 of the worst teams in the league. They haven't run the ball since then. Not very well, not very consistently. I think going to next Sunday night, they got to run the ball. They got to keep Joe Burrow off the field because nobody's been able to stop Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins, and their tight end, Mike Gesicki. Suddenly, Cincinnati is playing really good football, and Joe Burrow is just leading them down the field. So, like I say, next 5 weeks, big boy football.
So what do you figure? How many wins do you think they're going to need to get to the playoffs? Probably 11?
I'd say 10, because a lot of the other divisions in the AFC, they got real problems. But they got to beat these people. With apologies in advance to Charger fan, they haven't beaten anybody yet. And a couple times they went on the road and they got punched in the mouth by Arizona and Pittsburgh. So they haven't beaten anybody.
Well, the Pittsburgh game I could sort of understand, but the Arizona game was a disaster.
Yeah, but Arizona's playing a lot better.
They've
progressively gotten better and better. So you're a Charger fan. Like them, dislike them. I don't care. Just tell us what you think. Your fans forum box is open. You want to talk about the games this weekend, John?
Okay, yeah, there were a number of good ones here. Let's get them on the board. Start with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, Buffalo beats Indy. Josh Allen throws for 330 throws and runs. Bills are playing really good football right now. And right ahead of them, the Bills get Kansas City next weekend. Oh, that's going to be great. So Buffalo's really come together. I think the biggest surprise to me is Buffalo's defense is playing a hell of a lot better than I thought they were going to be capable of. Now they've got a bunch of their injured guys back healthy. But Josh Allen is carrying the load, and they're running the football with James Cox. They're doing much better in Buffalo right now. A couple of young wide receivers have really kind of come around. Baltimore, what a game against Cincinnati. That Thursday night game, Lamar Jackson, 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, finished with 490 yards and 4 touchdowns. Burrow throws for 428 and 4 touchdowns, and then got screwed by the officials down on the goal line on what should have been was a 2-point conversion play, and he got hit in the face mask, and they swallowed their whistle. And the tight end he was throwing to got twirled around coming off the line of scrimmage. Last I checked in the rule book, page 12, that's holding. There should have been 2 penalty flags on the same play. The officials swallowed their whistles. It was terrible. But Baltimore is really good. Holy cow. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, 3 wide receivers, 2 tight ends, and they're averaging like 430 yards a game. The Baltimore Ravens are. So Baltimore's a real deal. Is Kansas City living on borrowed time? Now that sounds stupid to say, and I volunteer that, yes, people do call me stupid. They're 9-0. 8 come from behind victories. It's been absolutely amazing what Mahomes has been able to engineer, having lost his top 2 wide receivers, having lost his top running back. But the rentals they brought in are making just enough plays. And Travis Kelce is having a phenomenal season. Sunday, he caught 8 balls. A week ago Sunday, he caught 14 receptions by a tight end. You just don't hear that. So, but are they living on borrowed time? Next week, Kansas City, Buffalo might come to an end. That'll be interesting. San Francisco, Brock Purdy, he's got him back to 500, 323 yards, couple of touchdown passes yesterday. They beat Tampa Bay. They choked Baker Mayfield. It's the first game that Mayfield's been shut down. Mayfield threw for only 116, and he had 23 touchdown passes going into the game. San Francisco really put the lid on him. Pittsburgh, Washington, that was a hell of a game. We talked last Thursday. I said, that's the kid quarterback, Jaden Daniels, coming to line of scrimmage. That's TJ Watt over there coming to get you. And they chased him all over the place. He threw for a bunch of yards. He did not throw a touchdown pass in the game. And then Pittsburgh won it with 2 minutes to go with you-know-who. Newly acquired ex-Charger wide receiver Mike Williams caught the game-winning touchdown pass from Russell Wilson. Pittsburgh nipped Washington. Daniels, in the face of all that adversity and that pass rush, still threw for 202, but they kept them out of the end zone. Pittsburgh, who could have imagined Pittsburgh with 2 one-year rental quarterbacks being where they are right now at 7-2? That's amazing. What a job Tomlin's done.
Yeah, he's a wizard. Yeah. I mean, that guy keeps pulling rabbits out of his hat.
Okay, so that's the first group. Run through there. Give us some reaction.
The reaction for me is that Kansas City Broncos game and how it came down to that blocked field goal at the end. Bo Nix actually looks pretty good. I'm pretty impressed with him.
I think Sean Payton's done a good job. He manages games. He does not throw a ton of interceptions, at least not since week 1. He's played much more consistently. They're running the football a little bit better. Denver's defense is playing rock solid right now. So, they're sitting there at 5-5. They got to be pleased because I think most people thought, oh, this is going to be a long season for Bo Nix, learning curve. Sean Payton has a good roster. You don't want to play Denver right now. Denver's defense is really, really rugged. So you got that. So that's the first half. Let's go to the second group of games we're going to talk about. Arizona. I was speechless. I'm a talk show host, and I was speechless. Arizona 31, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets 6. How's that possible?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, the Jets have just totally unraveled as a team. Aaron Rodgers did not throw any touchdown passes. I think there was at one point, Aaron Rodgers was 12 for 25 throwing the football.
Really?
And Kyler Murray is really cooking with his guys. And John Gannon has done such a job with the Cardinal defense. They were just spectacular. Murray threw for 266. Aaron Rodgers finally finished up in garbage time with 151 yards passing. New York is 3-7 on the season with Aaron Rodgers. Does this make you think back to the last Green Bay quarterback who went to New York to put the green helmet on, Brett Favre, and how badly that ended?
Yes.
This is really terrible. But Arizona, they've won 4 of their last 5. Detroit, Houston, what a Sunday night game. In my lifetime, I've never seen anybody throw 5 interceptions and still win a game. But Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions defense got it done. Detroit won against Houston. Yeah, there was a chunk of that game I thought to myself, Dan Campbell, there's a taste of your own medicine. Because they got their doors blown off in the first half. Mm-hmm. Houston had 3 interceptions in the first half. But the game was so wild that there wound up being 7 picks in the course of that football game. There were 5 interceptions in the first half alone. In fact, there was a stretch, I went back and looked. There were 7 possessions in the first half. 5 of them ended on interceptions.
Really?
I've never seen that. So Detroit survives a 5-pick game from Goff, and they win it with long-distance field goals. They beat Houston, and Houston's really beat up. The Texans have lost 3 of their last 4, so they're a little bit of a spiral down. Minnesota, has the world caught up with Sam Darnold? 3 more interceptions yesterday. Now, the Vikings did win. They beat Jacksonville, but everybody beats Jacksonville. But Sam Darnold now has 13 turnovers, and a bulk of them have come in the last 3 weeks. I wonder if the defenses have caught up to him, or if they're forcing the ball so much to Justin Jefferson that he's thrown into coverages when he should be thrown to other guys. That might be a piece of the equation, but Darnold's game right now is not what Darnold's game was when they roared out of the gate. And then Philadelphia just maimed the Dallas Cowboys. Eagles are 7-2. They got Hurts. They got the 2 wide receivers. They got a tight end, and they got Saquon Barkley, who's putting big numbers on the board running the football. And the Eagles' defense has gotten progressively better, more aggressive, and look at all those young athletes that are running. and Dallas is a disaster. Dak Prescott is going to have hamstring surgery, gone for the year. Their defensive front has been wiped out. Their secondary's got injuries. Their offensive front can't protect, and they can't run the football at all. And Jerry Jones this morning stood up and said, we are not changing coaches during the course of the season. So Mike McCarthy is here to suffer the rest of the season. Cowboy fans are just in a rage. However, sidebar note, Mike McCarthy and every one of those assistants are on the final year of their contract. There will be changes in Dallas effective at the end of the season. So, John, you want to comment on any of those 4 games?
The Lions game against the Texans last night was a lot of fun. It was very entertaining.
Turnover city.
But how about that call when they were interviewing Campbell and he says, we need to get some turnovers, and then boom, they intercepted the ball. And this is kind of a crazy thing, but I really like that all red uniform for the Texans. And it had sort of a different sort of a swirl logo on the helmet, almost like a Rams logo in a way.
Yeah, they're all color uniforms. They're different. I looked at them and said, wow, that's different. I've never seen that before, but I don't like the old Texan uniforms. I don't like anything about the way the Texans color scheme works. I thought that was kind of novel. That was kind of unique.
Yeah, and even like the face guard on the helmet was like a candy apple red. It was kind of a shiny, so it was kind of a cool look. It was something different. I enjoyed that.
So, interesting week around the National Football League, and we move on to Week 11 next week, and there are some doozy of games next week. We'll talk more about that on our Thursday.
How about another Week 10 question, though? What's going on with the 49ers and the kicker? And there was like an argument.
It was an incident on the sidelines with your guy, Deebo Samuel. Deebo ought to take care of Deebo's business, like be productive and earn your freaking money on the field, because he's been in and out of the lineup. He's been hurt. He was in the hospital. So Jake Moody, who's very erratic, missed 3 field goals. So in the fourth quarter, towards the end of the game, Deebo, who's always putting his nose in somebody else's business, walked down the sidelines and he shoved Jake Moody, and then he flipped off the long snapper who came to Jake Moody's defense.
Wow.
That's supposed to be a teammate. Are you telling everybody you're better than everybody else? So that's the case. How come your team is only at 500, Deebo, and you're making all this money? Horse's ass. Terrible thing. I mean, he's lucky long snapper didn't pop him, because the long snapper stalked him down the sidelines after he shoved Jake Moody. Moody's hot and cold. He's a young rookie. I'm not sure I would have kept him, but he's won some games for them. But obviously, he's missed a pile of field goals. He may lead the league in missed field goals so far this season.
Yeah, but as a teammate, you got to lift your guys up,
Yeah.
rather than smacking them down.
Yeah, I thought it was cheap. But then all these wide receivers you like, they're all divas.
Yeah,
They're all just, and most of them aren't earning their money right now. So it's a big issue. Okay, that's all things NFL. You want to comment on the games yesterday? Feel free, jump on board. The Fans Forum chat box is open. We're going to you shortly here on our Monday bonus podcast. John, we go from that. We got college football to talk about.
College football. Okay, let's bring it up here. There's the list. Oh, the Aztecs, man. That was a rough game against New Mexico.
That was my lead story on KUSI on Saturday morning. I do the big sports package at 6:30 Saturday morning while you were snoring in zine logs.
That's early, 6:30 in the morning.
Dude, if I can get up at 4:30 on Saturday, to be on the air at 6:30,
I've watched you a few times on that.
Yeah, it is bleeping brilliant. I asked the question, if you could describe what happened Friday night at Snapdragon Stadium. The Aztecs lost to New Mexico 21-16. Would you use the words out-toughed, out-schemed, out-coached, out of gas? It was deplorable. New Mexico, 130th ranked defense in the country, and San Diego State could only score 1 touchdown against the 130th ranked team in the nation. Aztec defense, they got gashed all night. They gave up 51 and 67-yard touchdown runs. They gave up 476 yards to New Mexico's offense. And then Bronco Mendenhall, the first-year coach, who took over what I think might have been the worst program in the country in Albuquerque. He's recruited pretty well. He came to the line of scrimmage against a freshman quarterback, Danny O'Neill, and he showed him a 3-man front. Rush 3, drop 8. Danny O'Neill stood in the pocket. They hardly ever got to him. He couldn't find receivers. He wound up scrambling. He wound up throwing incompletions. He wound up forcing it into coverage. All their chunk plays went away. I mean, it was really a poor performance by what I think is a tired team. They ran Marquez Cooper, their top running back, 35 times. He only had 123 yards rushing because everything in that New Mexico defense was in front of them. So they see handoff, linebacker secondary makes the tackle. They see play action. They see Cooper on a sweep, helmets to the ball. New Mexico did it. I thought Mendenhall did a phenomenal job. So now they're 3-6, and they look fatigued on defense. It looks like people have figured them out. They're not getting a lot of chunk plays on offense any longer. Just not real productive. And next week they go to Las Vegas. They go to UNLV, which used to be one of the worst programs in the country. And thanks to a coaching change and the importation of a guy who used to be at the University of Arkansas, suddenly UNLV, they're winning. They're in second place in the Mountain West Conference. So the Aztecs, they could be 3-7 by the time they get home. And the worst scenario of all, nobody cares. You know what the attendance was? 12,773. That was in the stadium.
What's the capacity? It's like around
32.
32.
12,000. All-time worst attendance at San Diego State since they moved into the shiny new stadium at Snapdragon.
That's more than half empty.
And they gave away free tickets, too. Every season ticket holder got 2 free tickets. Nobody showed up. It was a Friday night football game and a team that was 3-5 playing New Mexico, but nobody showed up. And now they're 3-6. Ooh, it's just, they're checking off all the boxes of all the bad things that could happen to a football program that was pretty good for a chunk of time with Rocky Long and Brady Hoke. It's going to take time. I'm not anti-Sean Lewis. It's just going to take time. But where the hell are the alumni? Where the hell is the student body? 12,773, all-time worst record. And actually, I was talking to a columnist today coming out of the Aztec press conference. I broadcast San Diego State football. They're drawn 40 to 50,000 every night in the Marshall Faulk era. And it's all times. It was all gone away. It's really stunning. So we got that. You're an Aztec fan. You can agree with me. You can disagree. You can defile the alumni and the student body. You give us your opinion of what's happened. Man, oh man, the college football scoreboard on Saturday was upside down. It's hard to believe how many marquee teams got beat. University of Miami lost to lowly Georgia Tech. Cam Ward, Heisman Trophy candidate, he put on a show, threw for 348 and 3 touchdowns, but he fumbled at the end. But Miami's defense just could not get off the field. Georgia Tech was running options and wishbones and RPOs, and Georgia Tech beat unbeaten Miami. Man, that was a shocker. Georgia, they got beat. They got ambushed. Biggest win for Lane Kiffin at Oxford. Ole Miss at home beat Georgia. Jackson Dort put on a pretty good show, had like 245 all-purpose yards. And Christian Beck, he threw for yards, but he didn't throw many touchdown passes. So Georgia gets knocked out of the top 5, just like Miami got knocked out of the top 5 in the polls. Alabama came back and made LSU's life really miserable. Alabama posted a pretty impressive win. Jalen Milroe, who's been in a bit of a slump, 185 yards rushing, 109 yards passing. Boise beat Nevada. Heisman hopeful Ashton Jeanty, another 200-yard game, goes for 209 and 3 touchdowns. And Indiana, for the first time in history, is 10-0. Never been done before. Indiana football school? You kidding me? Kurt Warwick, the transfer from Ohio U, gets them a victory over Michigan. Come from behind win, won on a field goal at the end. The Hoosiers are 10-0 on the season. The ratings, the polls, keep getting flipped week by week. So we'll see when the bowl poll comes out on Tuesday how far down Miami and Georgia drop, because they're going to have to drop. So, John, college football, the table belongs to you.
I'm really happy about Indiana. I mean, I really am. They're number 5 now. They're undefeated. And, Yeah, I mean, they had some success with Michael Vick there, but you'd have to go back like a million years when they were any good. But it's nice that they beat Michigan. I mean, that's got to be such a big deal for that university, that community. The Aztecs, though, man, I want them to be successful.
Sure.
I want them, and I'm willing to give them a lot of slack because they basically had to blow everything up. They had to nuclear bomb everything, bring in new players, new coach, new system, new everything. And
the whole offensive line's hurt.
Oh, it just adds to the mess. So I kind of feeling it for Sean Lewis. I know there's a lot of fans that are saying, hey, the Clippers just opened up that new arena in Oceanside for their G League team, and they're giving out lots of freebies and discounted drinks and bring the family and 4-packs of tickets and getting creative. But it seems like the Aztecs don't want to lose that price integrity that they originally set because maybe they can't go back to it.
Yeah, but they got empty seats everywhere, and you're still asking for $200 to $1,200 for the best seats in the house, and you have to pay a stadium fee on top of your season ticket. I mean, it's a money grab beyond belief, and the community has said, not me, not with this product, not on that conference. And now you tack on a bad season on top of it. And, Sean Lewis, it's his program. I understand that. I'm not going to blame him outright. But what they're running right now is not working. It's a byproduct of player turnover. They had 42 guys go transfer portal. It's a byproduct of all the injuries in the offensive line and a young quarterback who I think is going to be really good. But boy, the community is they've turned their back on him. They're turned off to Aztec football. It's a football city that lost its NFL team, and all these displaced NFL fans have never gone to San Diego State. Not in the Brady Rocky era, and surely not now.
Well, San Diego loves a winner, right? I mean, they're all bandwagon fans here. So, yeah, it's down on the Aztec alum for not being there. But, I mean, how was Sean Lewis at the press conference this morning? I mean, he couldn't have been a real happy guy.
Shortest press conference we've had all season with him. I asked him 2 questions. He didn't like the tone of my questions. That's okay. I'm asking about your defense. That's giving up 405 yards a game and gave up 476 yards to New Mexico. New Mexico. He'll flip it. He'll turn it a year from today. Better times are coming.
I hope so.
But to get from point A to point B, from where they are right now at 3-6, to get to where I think they should be next season, you have to have some things go right. And I don't see any of those things going right. Okay, that's all things college football. We get to halftime. Our Monday bonus podcast. You're an Aztec fan, friend, alum. I'd like to have you participate in Fans Forum. Jump on board because John will find your questions and we'll get them on the air. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects. John's had projects. John, so what's the most pleasing thing you got from DIXIELINE? Mine are the windows and the doors in my house. And yours?
Definitely. I love our front door because it's like a castle front door with a speakeasy and everything else. They have some really classic stuff there and some creative doors too.
You got needs for home, work, the back patio, or for a construction project, talk to them. These people, DIXIELINE Lumber. The second half of our Monday bonus podcast, just a couple of bookkeeping items. If you like sports, you should read my website. I write on my website every day. When we're done tonight with this podcast, just punch up my website on the internet and see what I have to offer you every day. It's there first thing in the morning, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. And when you go to the website, right on the homepage, there's an orange box. We invite you to join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. We offer you all kinds of bonus stuff there. Also, want you to share, tell everybody what we do on Mondays and Thursdays. Want you to subscribe on the YouTube channel. You do that, you'll get the alerts every time we put something new up on the YouTube channel. And we do that all hours, days, and nights, including on the weekend. Also want you to join my social media team on Twitter, on X. You're on social media. Don't lie to me. I know you are. Hey, type in my handle, @Hacksaw1090. This guy even did it, @Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button every time I put something up on Twitter, a.k.a. X. you'll know about it. Then you can respond, also take part in Hacksaw's mini poll. So a lot of different things we're doing in social media in addition to the podcasts on Mondays and Thursdays.
Can I just say something about this? I remember as a kid, every morning I would look at the sports section.
Sure.
And there'd be a headline, a couple of stories, maybe a column, and then you open up, you go to the box scores, look at the data. What you do every day is the equivalent of that. I mean, you're in your best 15, you're breaking everything down in every sport, the whole gamut. You're giving us data like who went 2 for 3, and you've got it all sorted out. And then you got a column every day. I mean, who else does this?
I'm a Renaissance man. You are correct. I am better right now than your daily newspaper, but sample it, read it. It's there the first thing every morning. You pop it up. You give me 5 minutes. I'll give you the whole world in the world of sports. And it's free. There's nothing in the world that's free. And I'm giving it to you free in addition to this podcast. Okay, John, Fans Forum, again, for the new people who join us on live stream, don't understand what Fans Forum is, just explain it.
It's kind of like the old talk show on 690, 1090. You got a question, you got a call, you're on the Kiss My Aztec line. You got a question for San Diego State. Just type it into the live chat on Facebook, X, or YouTube. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum at the conclusion of Hacksaw's headlines.
And that's just coming up, just around the corner. So stand by for that. You're going to take over this podcast. Let's go to the second half of the show, and we're talking hoops.
NBA Notebook. What do you got, Lee?
Start of the season. I don't think anybody imagined it'd be like this. Cleveland is 11-0 out of the gate. Cavaliers, led by the high-scoring guard that used to be in Utah, Donovan Mitchell, led by the former USC big guy who's gotten progressively better year by year, Evan Mobley, led by outstanding shooter in Connor Garland. The Cavaliers are 11-0. Nobody expected this. Philadelphia's 1-7.
Ooh.
Now, that's got to do with injuries. Don't have Paul George, bruised knee, just came back, still not right. Obviously, Joel Embiid's been involved with the knee issue, the feud with the media. And Tyrese Maxey, who I think's a star, and he's not been able to stay healthy. He's got a kneecap problem. So now you understand why Philadelphia's 1-7. I don't understand team chemistry in Milwaukee. They're 2-8. And Giannis Antetokounmpo just ripped his team over the weekend, saying there is a no-compete attitude that's in this locker room. We need to make changes. Milwaukee's going to make some trades. They traded last year to get Damian Lillard from Portland, and I thought that was going to really put him over the top. But he showed up as a banged-up player, and he's not been very consistent nor very explosive. So Milwaukee is in all kinds of trouble. And then you got Memphis. They got all three of their guards are out. John Morant is out with a hip and pelvic injury. He can't stay healthy. He can't stay on the floor when he's not in trouble, but he's gone for at least another 3 weeks. And they're already without Marcus Smart, who's their top defender, and they're without Desmond Bane, who's their third guard. Their top 3 guards are not playing, so Memphis is just kind of reeling. And then there's the Bronny James story. You need to explain the psyche of your friends, the fans. So Bronny James is the 12th man on the Lakers roster, LeBron's kid. And he's there because he's a legacy draft pick. Is that what we came up with the term?
Yeah, that's right.
Dad helped me get drafted. So he can't play at the NBA level. They sent him to the NBA G League to play for the Lakers G League team in the South Bay. So his opening night game, it was sold out. Fans are going crazy. Laker players showed up to sit along the first row. So Bronny James in his first game in the G League goes 2 for 9 shooting, 0 for 4 from the arc, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, 5 turnovers, 4 fouls in 31 minutes. He checked off all the boxes. 2 for 9 in the G League, and they're cheering him like he's some icon. What is with you people, you fans?
Well, what did you always say about nepotism?
It's nice if you're on the receiving end.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is.
Amazing. But he's going to play down there. I don't think he's going to play very much for the Lakers, but we'll just see if he can make some improvement as we go. And the G League team in San Diego at the new Oceanside Arena made its debut with a win over Portland's team, Rip City, on Friday night. They had a nice crowd. They have only one recognizable name. And see, this is where I'm not even sure that the G League has any value. They got a 6'11" young center by the name of Kai Jones. The Clippers' last roster cut came down. He'll probably play pretty well here. But the rest of the roster, there's no recognizable names. There's no Southern Californians. There's no Aztecs. There's no Trojans. There's no Bruins. There's kids from all other places who didn't make NBA rosters you can't identify with. So, and everybody in the G League is just playing hard or playing their game, not necessarily a team game, so I can get a 10-day contract and a little bit of money, go to the NBA, and then I get sent back. So it's weird. Speaking of the G League, Jaden Ledee has reported to the Iowa team, Minnesota Timberwolves team. Malachi Flynn has reported to Austin, Texas, the San Antonio Spurs G League team, and they will start the season with those teams. Nathan Mensah is on, I believe, on the NBA injured list right now. So that's the update with the Aztecs. So go ahead, talk hoops. Floor is yours.
Well,
don't turn the ball over.
Don't turn it over. I mean, Malachi Flynn, I know, had a couple of really big productive games.
He had a 50-pointer.
But when you are kind of pigeonholed as a G League guy, I mean, it's like the kiss of death. It's hard to get back up to the NBA and be a stable, in the rotation kind of a player.
Exactly. But he wasn't a G Leaguer. He was number 1 draft pick, first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
And he played in Toronto and was there for 2 years. And then he got moved twice last season. He had a 50-point game at the end of last season. It must be holes in his game. That's hard. G League is a really hard existence. You don't make a lot of money, and the travel is crap. I'm sorry. Have you ever been to Fargo, North Dakota? They got franchises in all these backwater roadmap cities.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that if it doesn't work out for Malachi, he'll probably be in Europe. Maybe during the season, he'll wind up and say, enough for me. That's a hard life, bus trips and all that.
Well, it seems like a lot of guys, they sort of have a moment where they say, I need to go to China. I need to go to Europe or South America where I can make some money. But it is kind of silly how they have a G League, but they don't pay them that well. I just don't understand that.
Well, they're under the guidance of the NBA team, and the Clippers roster in San Diego, up in Oceanside, the San Diego, quote, Clippers, those are all under Clipper G League contracts. Their coaches are employed by the Clippers. They put them through Clipper-driven nutrition programs, weight programs, conditioning programs. So they're training them in an NBA mode, but hardly any of these guys make the NBA. So I just asked the question, what is the true value?
Yeah.
But somebody else came back to me and said, well, Lee, you're always hyping the American Hockey League and the San Diego Gulls. The difference is those are high draft picks. Those, in some cases, are number 1 picks that wind up in the NHL in a month from now or a half year from now or opening night next season that we saw here with the Gulls. This is different. These guys are not draft picks. These guys are street free agents hanging on for dear life, not making a lot of money. I'm not quite sure what the true values should be. Maybe the thing should be, let's just go to an 18-man roster in the NBA and you keep everybody with the big club and you train and you practice and you put them on the active roster when you have injuries, because I don't know what you get down here. I've seen G League games and there's not a lot of structure. It's a lot of freelance one-on-one. I got my point basketball.
Yeah. I mean, these guys are living the dream or chasing the dream, but maybe it's not attainable.
I don't think it is in the G League. In the American Hockey League, it definitely is.
Yeah. It's a different thing. It's a legitimate minor league.
So that's where we are. All things basketball. You got an opinion? Give the San Diego Clippers a look-see. The arena's kind of cool. It's small, compact, etc. John and I are going to go sit courtside and watch a game. And then you get back and let us know what you think about the G League. Okay, we'll go from that. Hockey Hotline is open. Kind of a weird story.
NHL, what do you got, Lee?
This is really different. Over the past 2 years, Gary Bettman, the president of the National Hockey League, has just played hands off when asked questions about fights, injuries, concussions, and the relationship to CTE. And he had, because there have been hockey players who have killed themselves. Most of them were the policeman, the tough guy, who have killed themselves because of brain damage. And Gary Bettman always took a stance back and said, well, we see no link at all between concussions and CTE. Well, that's been proven differently in the National Football League and Boston University. However, the union has stepped up, and on Friday, the NHL Players Association mandated They're bringing neurologists in for individual meetings with every NHL team and its 25-man roster to talk about concussions and the actual link to CTE.
Mm-hmm.
The union mandated this. And Gary Bettman backed away and said, okay, let's bring it in. This is after 2 years of denial from the commissioner, the president of the NHL, that there's no linkage. When everybody I know says, yeah, there's a hell of a lot of linkage.
Yeah.
Fighting is down. Fighting still occurs. Players have much more protection than they've ever had before. But now the union's taking it the next step forward to bring neurologists in to meet with every team like it's an hour seminar. And you will attend and you will take notes and you will ask questions about head injuries, trauma, headaches. If you get them, what should you do? The warning signs, guys who have repeat issues. It's a big, big issue. League is yet to clear up the open ice hit problem. There's still a lot of stuff that goes on. We had a bad incident over the weekend. Vancouver's Canucks lost its captain, Brock Boeser. He got nailed at center ice, shoulder check to the head by an LA Kings player. It was an obvious intent to bury the guy at center ice. And we still have guys getting flipped into the boards and suffering concussions. The Kings guy that hit him got suspended for 3 games and fined $40,000. And there was no call for it. You can hit a guy at center ice. You can't lead with your elbow. You can't lead with your shoulder. It can't be a blow to the head. And now Vancouver's lost its captain indefinitely. He was hospitalized with a concussion. So hats off to the NHL Players Association. Seminars are beginning, I think, between now and the start of Thanksgiving, and they'll proceed right through the entire month of December. It's a huge thing.
Kind of reminds me of the story you told when you went and saw Concussion.
Yeah, the movie.
With the Chargers players.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good that they're being exposed to this, but it just still blows me away that, roll the clock back a few decades when they didn't have to wear the helmets. I mean, guys must have been getting destroyed out there.
Well, guys were getting hit. And it was also an era where everybody had a cop on the roster. And if you hit my guy, you're going to have to answer to my tough guy. There's going to be a fight on the ice. So there weren't guys taking liberties to nail the Wayne Gretzkys of the world because they knew they'd have to stand up to Marty McSorley or somebody else. But yeah, there was danger. But that was a different era. I mean, I grew up in hockey, and the era of the 50s and the 60s and 70s was really different. But now the players got bigger and stronger, and everybody weight trains for 11 months of the year. And now the guys throwing haymakers have a lot more force behind their punches. Now, fighting is way down. And it's become such a skating game with the importation of so many great Europeans. You can't afford to have a bunch of goons on your roster because you're going to have to send those guys out to play. And how are they going to defend against all these high-flying guys that the Detroit Red Wings have? So one other side note in hockey, our friends in Canada who are part of our network, the old Canada Network, the Winnipeg Jets, their home team, are 14-1.
Hey.
All-time greatest start in the history of the National Hockey League that goes back to 1920. Nobody has started 14-1. The Winnipeg Jets have. So that's
it's
cool.
an NHL record, not just a Jets record.
No, it's an NHL record.
Oh, good for those guys.
Forever and ever. I mean, that encompasses the great Boston Bruins, the Bleu Blanc Rouge, the Montreal Canadiens, the legendary Philadelphia Flyers. Nobody has gone 14-1 out of the gate. Winnipeg has.
Right on, man. Go Winnipeg.
Good deal. Okay, we got that last topic on the table before we get to Fans Forum.
Yeah, auto racing here. We got NASCAR. Michael Jordan on the list, too.
Yeah. Good old boys. Let's talk about the first name on the board. This is quite a story. Joey Logano, veteran driver, is about to retire. Joey Logano, in his farewell season, wins the point championship yesterday in Phoenix. He muscled his way to the front. He led for 107 laps, won $5 million package for Team Penske. In fact, Team Penske finished 1 and 2 in that race. It's just been an absolutely bizarre NASCAR season with controversy over cheating, rough riding, lack of respect for drivers, and then obviously the mess with a lawsuit. We'll get to that in a second. But Joey Logano wins in his final race, wins the points championship. Bobby Allison has passed away. Legendary driver. This was a star in the making in the 1970s. He's one of the reasons Winston Cup racing became special. Bobby Allison passed away at age 86. He won 85 races over the course of his career. He was part of what was called the Alabama Gang. All these guys came out of Alabama simultaneously. Bobby Allison, Dale Earnhardt, all these guys arrived at the same time, and they brought their personality and their driving skills. Bobby Allison was involved in a bad fight at the end of the Daytona 500. I think it was 1979. He got in a fight in the infield after he wrecked with Cale Yarborough. They were racing first and second to win the Daytona 500, and they crashed right at the end because they were banging, swapping paint. They both wrecked their cars. Both cars slid down the middle of the infield. They got out of their cars and started throwing haymakers. It happened. It was the first nationally televised NASCAR race ever on TV. And it was in January, and it was a blizzard in the East Coast and the Midwest, and everybody got stuck at home, and they saw these two drivers throwing fists at each other in the infield as the checkered flag was being waved. Hilarious. It made NASCAR on TV an event. But Bobby Allison has passed away. Hell of a driver, good old boy, deep South twang, Christian. I interviewed him multiple times, just a fun guy. He was involved in a horrific accident at Talladega in 1988. Had a severe concussion, lost his memory and everything. I mean, he was almost a vegetable. They thought he was going to die in the hospital. He came back. He regained all of his motor skills. Now he retired. He became a car owner, but he was one of the great personalities. We call them the good old boys from the deep South.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby Allison passes away. And then there's Michael Jordan, NBA star, now a NASCAR owner. Michael Jordan, we told you the story 2 weeks ago, filed a lawsuit, an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR. To race in NASCAR, you have to sign what's called a charter agreement. It's a working agreement with NASCAR. That this is how you will operate your team. This is the cost controls you must operate under. These are the revenue streams. This is the amount of money you get from the national TV contract. Michael Jordan's of the opinion that he and his 23X team and the Front Row Racing team have filed an antitrust lawsuit, and they've hired a big antitrust sports lawyer, Jeff Kessler, to represent them. Michael Jordan is of the opinion that this is an antitrust violation. He said, NASCAR has bullied all these owners into signing a contract that does not give them enough revenue from the TV contracts and the media contracts. And these teams are really struggling to make it work because all the financial resources you have to pour in. He says it's an antitrust violation the way they're treating the owners of these NASCAR teams. He refused to sign the charter. Front Row Racing refused to sign the charter. They went to ask on Friday for an injunction that would allow them to race next season without a charter while the lawsuits continue, and the federal judge said no. These are the guidelines. You have to sign the charter. Otherwise, you compete as an independent. You sign a charter, you're guaranteed to be in the top 36 spots in qualifying. You get a guaranteed spot in the start of every race. If you don't have a charter, you have to qualify your way in on a week-by-week basis. And if you don't qualify, that means you lose sponsorship money. You're not going to get a piece of the pie. So this thing's really at loggerheads right now. But Michael Jordan got shut out by a federal judge and said, no, the charter rules you agreed to and the charter rules remain in effect. Michael Jordan says we should freaking unionize. And that's the only way to bring NASCAR to its knees. That would mean shutting down the sport. He says it's the only way these drivers and these owners are going to get more money if we unionize and go to a collective bargaining agreement with NASCAR's owners. It's a really nasty thing. So Michael Jordan's trying to do something that nobody's ever done before in NASCAR racing. So, John, go ahead. You're a good old boy. You kind of look like a redneck sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's cool. Michael Jordan is a special person, and he's a winner, and he wants to make it work. So I like the idea that he's sort of kind of challenging the authority, challenging the system. But there really is no like alternate NASCAR. I mean, it's just IndyCar or F1 or one of those, right? So yeah, it's fascinating. Bobby Allison, I remember his name. I remember because I was a little kid in the 70s, and I remember all those famous guys. They were Indy 500 drivers, at least as far as I was concerned. But obviously, a lot of them went NASCAR. Did Bobby Allison go Indy 500?
He dabbled in Indy, but he was a NASCAR guy. He was deep South Alabama gang. That's how he grew up.
Yeah,
you should Google Bobby Allison Daytona 500 fight.
Yeah, well, I did.
You won't believe the video. It's so cool.
It is. It is. It's really good. I mean, because we talked about this about a year and a half ago or something, and you brought it up. I went back and Googled it. It's hilarious. I mean, just the way this whole thing unfolded. So, yeah. I mean, we lost a great one.
And every time I remember I asked him about the fight with Yarborough, because I said, this changed everything as it relates to NASCAR being just a good old boy deep South sport, became a nationwide sport on TV, and now you're racing all over the country. He said, yeah, that Cale Yarborough, he kept putting his nose in front of my fist all the time, and I had to knock him down. But what a gentleman. And he paid a terrible price. He lost 2 sons in racing. One of his sons died in a plane crash, another died in a crash, and then Bobby's career was ended. I saw the Talladega crash. I couldn't believe that he was able to be carried out of the car, but he was in very, very bad shape for a long time. But he was a hell of a salesman. He was quite a personality too. He was a Bible thumper, and he'd make sure he'd put you in the wall, but then go to church on Sunday. Say, I'm sorry.
Love thy neighbor.
That's right, except on the track. Okay, those are topics on the table. It's your turn to take over control of this podcast. We do sports talk the way it should be done. We put a lot of topics out there. We give you a window to jump on board. We call those Fans Forum. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. You got projects for 2024 or thinking about doing things in 2025. You're going to need materials. You want ideas? Deal with these people. Just stop over and take a tour. See what they've got to offer. DIXIELINE Lumber. Here comes John's favorite segment. These are the only friends John has in society. A lot of people camp out there in left field to be next to John Riley. Fans Forum starts right now, John.
All right, let's go to this. We're going to go to a Dodger fan. This is the dancing peacock Dodger fans right here. This is Javi. He goes, here comes Roki. Darvish going to cry himself to sleep next year.
Oh, isn't it great? We have a Dodger-Padre rivalry that's now really important, that we're in the offseason and Dodger fan is insulting Padre fan. We'll see. The fact that he comes for an affordable contract at $2.5 million because he's an underage, if you call it underage free agent, this is really, really unique. But, he's got a relationship with Darvish. He knows Preller. But then again, that is Ohtani on the other end of this phone line making this call, and that's Yamamoto, whom he knows, whom he pitched against a year ago. I think he's going to Dodger Stadium, but I'd never rule out the Padres. But the fact that everybody can only pay this amount because he's not a true veteran free agent where he'd get the bigger amount. So everybody could be in the mix is what's important to him. Dodgers, World Series ring, Ohtani, Yamamoto, Dodger history and tradition with all these great pitchers that came from the land of the rising sun. I think Dodgers.
Unless he's a contrarian.
Like
wants,
you.
Yeah, like me. So wants to try like, hey, I'm going to help out another team be competitive.
He's not going to the Miami Marlins.
Well, he's not going to do that. I mean, he's going to, I would imagine, West Coast or New York. But yeah, he's going to have his pick of the lot because everybody can afford him.
Mm-hmm. But that's Dodger Stadium with a World Series ring right there.
How do you compete against that?
I concur with you. Hobby, we'll see where this one goes. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, so this next one's from Mr. Classic Think Tank. And this is when we were talking about the Padres and do they have catchers available? And he says Travis d'Arnaud is still available.
He was not offered a contract. They're letting him go as a free agent. Atlanta's they've got some monster money issues with other players. d'Arnaud is solid. His brother played here as a utility man, a shortstop with Chase d'Arnaud, was a nice guy. Travis can pop some home runs. There will be veteran catchers out there. And if indeed Higashioka goes back to Yankee Stadium, he's going to ask for a pay bump. I know that. He's not going to play here for $2.7 million this season after a really good season. The Yankees, I thought, really missed him. Although the Yankees got a really good catcher. Actually, there's a kid from out here, Austin Wells. Mm-hmm. But they're looking for another veteran. So, there's so many moving parts here. You could say, okay, Higgy is going back to Yankee Stadium. Fine. We got Campusano. But if Campusano gets thrown into the Cronenworth deal for Garrett Crochet of the White Sox, now the Padres have a huge hole, unless they're going to have the Rockies catcher Elias Diaz be there. But you can go get catchers. I don't know, get an all-star, but yeah, d'Arnaud's name is out there for sure.
How serious is the rumor of Higashioka going to the Yankees? Because I would think he'd want to be in Southern California. This is where his family is.
Exactly.
So
But
why not stay and, just give him a pay bump, and make it work?
could well happen. I mean, he was a pleasant surprise. Hit 17 home runs. Now I thought he played really well for the Yankees the last year and a half prior to coming here in the big trade for Soto. But money talks, people walk. So he's very familiar back there. But maybe they guarantee him he is the starter here. Maybe he stays. Only time will tell.
Okay, let's keep moving. Let's go here to J.O. And he says, I don't understand why the Chicago White Sox would take back Cronenworth. He doesn't fit their window.
They need some form of veteran player to stabilize their infield and their batting order. I mean, they've wiped the slate clean. At one point, they had 3 of the most promising young outfielders that they had gotten out of the Caribbean, and all of them are gone now. Well, Luis Robert is still there, but everybody else is gone. Eloy Jimenez, etc. So they need veterans. The only problem that would hold this deal up, I was told, is that they'd want the Padres to pay some of Cronenworth's contract because Cronenworth had the 7 years, $70 million extension. And I don't think the White Sox want to pay $10 million per year. But if the Padres want Crochet, who could be a cornerstone 1 or 2 guy at the front end of this rotation, they're going to have to overpay somehow, some way.
But Crochet was only going like 4 innings.
Well, that was because they're trying to protect his arm, because he used to be a reliever, converted into a starter, and was really dominant the first half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of shut him down and they put him on an innings limit. He pitched 4 innings out here in September against the Padres, and he was dazzling. And then they took him out of the game, and they lost the game after they took him out.
Yeah, he was good then.
Yep.
But wasn't he like demanding that if he got traded, he wanted to get a bonus if the team went to the World Series?
Yeah, he wanted a contract extension immediately, and then the White Sox said, no, we'll just finish the season. They wanted the entire offseason, and they laid the groundwork. The Winter Baseball General Managers meetings just concluded San Antonio. I have no doubt that they started taking offers for Crochet there. I mean, Crochet's name is being mentioned with the New York Mets, too.
Well, I mean, if you were the White Sox, would you rather have Crochet or like Cronenworth and Campusano? I think I'd keep Crochet.
Yeah, it just depends how many young guys are in the deal. If it turns out to be 3 for 1 or 4 for 1, and you get a couple of real hot prospects, then maybe you do that. Because they're not going to win with Crochet as the cornerstone for the next couple of years. But if you get yourself 2 really established young front of the rotation starting pitchers, and you get some veterans, makes you a better team. Last year, I mean, you do the math. 3 for 1, 4 for 1 for one pitcher, if they're the right guys.
Okay. All right.
I mean, think about the Soto trade. Think about everything the Padres got, led by Michael King, and then what they used to get Dylan Cease, and that turned out to be a win-win on both fronts for the Padres.
Yeah, that's creative ideas too, because we're worried about if they can sign everyone. But if you unload Cronenworth, then suddenly you have a little more cash on your hands, and Crochet is not that expensive yet, right?
Not yet. Not yet. 1 more year arbitration, I believe.
Okay, so that they're going to have to figure out something creative. One of our guys that we like is not going to be here.
The problem is the Mets are in on this now, and the Mets have got all kinds of ways to creatively finance contracts and creatively move guys in deals. So we shall see. Winter baseball meetings come up in December. We'll be talking about that too. Next question.
Okay, here we go. And this is from a Dodger fan. And by the way, we got something goofy going on with our StreamYard streaming software. It just says Facebook user instead of their names. So I'm not sure who this is. What will be the range of the Dodger payroll heading into 2025? Will it exceed $300 million?
Well, I think it was by the time they got done, it was 290. And they're not afraid to pay the luxury tax. But remember, there's a bunch of contracts coming off the books. Bueller's contract is off the books. Teoscar Hernandez, which was $23 million, is off the books as of we speak right now. Kershaw is off the books. There are going to be some other guys who won't count. So they'll be rearranging the money that was spent here, and they could go somewhere else and spend it. Only time will tell. I mean, Teoscar's asking for 3 years, 70, and he's 32 years old. So I don't know if the Dodgers want to go that deep on that type of long-term contract with Hernandez. But they're obviously going to have to go get a bat if Teoscar is gone. But that's why all these other names are out there. So, but money's no object at Dodger Stadium, like money is no object at Yankee Stadium, and surely money is no object with the New York Mets. The Mets have over $120 million now in budget space for free agency, and they led all of baseball with payroll last season at well north of $300 million.
So the Mets budget is way beyond that third salary cap.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how in the hell Cohen must be digging deep into his pocket.
But he's got deep pockets.
Okay.
No big deal. Hal Steinbrenner is the one that made the comment, I don't like this luxury tax payment we're making every year. We need to come down underneath the threshold. And that's what they did last year. So now they hit the reset button and go back over it. Padres hit the reset button, but they don't want to go over 200 million.
Yeah. I mean, I understand. It starts affecting your draft picks and everything else. Teoscar Hernandez is making 23 a year now. And if it's a 3-year deal, that's like 70 million. So it's hopefully, I mean, he deserves to be paid that. I mean, the home run champ too, so, but what about Tommy Edman? Is when he came over, do they still have another year on the deal?
I think they do. Yes. He's not a free agent.
That's a hell of a player too.
He's going to be their starting shortstop, I assume, with Mookie Betts going to second base.
And Gavin Lux wondering what end is up.
Outfield, trade somewhere. You got Lux, you got Outman, you got Pages. They don't have any outfielders right now. If Teoscar's gone, they got potentially 3 openings or no stars. But again, you go back where the Dodgers go back in the marketplace, you make another deal.
Well, they have that. They have one really good prospect, don't they?
Yeah, it's a converted catcher, Dalton Rushing, but he's never played the outfield at this level. He just converted to outfield last year in AAA. So only time will tell.
Interesting.
But there's so many. There's 156 veteran free agents out there. There are guys to go get. And the Dodgers not afraid to spend money.
All right, let's keep going. Okay, also another Facebook user, spot on again, saw Herbert is going to get killed if they can't protect him better. He's a big kid and can deliver a shot, but I'd really hate to see him take a hit like Tua in Miami. Give him 3 seconds in the pocket, O-line.
I'm a little bit disappointed in the offensive line. I do not understand with 3 number 1 draft picks why they're getting beat on blitzes, why they're on stunts and some of the moves. If you watch the line play, you will see guys scraping off, coming as second blitzers, getting straight shots at Herbert. Now, Herbert's so athletic that he can bust some of those things and pull off big runs. He had 34 yards rushing against Tennessee. To me, he's taken way too many hits. Hey, they're 6-3. They've earned it. But now they start to play real people. And that's a big, big issue. Because they're playing Cincinnati, and then they're playing Atlanta, and then they're playing Kansas City, and they're playing Tampa, and they still got to go to Denver. And I mean, their schedule is pretty doggone rugged in the next 5 weeks.
So let's go through the list. There's the number 1 draft picks on the O-line is Joe Alt. There's Jackie Slater, not Jackie,
Rashawn Slater.
Rashawn Slater. Is there any relation?
No
relation.
No.
And then the third guy is Zion
Johnson, left guard.
Okay, and that was Zion Johnson was the one that I think a lot of the Charger fans were really upset about. They were saying he was like a turnstile, just letting guys get past him.
The center is the weak link. He's a 1-year veteran. Bozeman came from Carolina. The right guard, Pipkins, he's been erratic. But there have the whole line. I keep track of these things. The whole line, they all get beat. They all get beat on blitzes and pass rushers out on the edge. And I don't think they've played consistently dominant offensive line football for a team that's got 3 number 1s. And now we're going to find out because they start playing real people next Sunday night against Cincinnati.
It was an interesting thing happened in the game yesterday. And who's that new receiver they got? Ragnar or
Rieger came from Philadelphia. Kind of a journeyman, was in Philadelphia, was in Tampa Bay. He can fly, drops passes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how I thought of him. But he had missed a pass, dropped it, came back to the huddle, and the camera angle was such that you could see him standing next to Justin Herbert, and Herbert is huge,
6'6".
That guy is,
and he runs.
He's unbelievable.
Yeah, he's got great speed, long strider. I just think he's a great quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, how do you compare Josh Allen or Justin Herbert? Who do you like more?
Well, Allen's a big physical specimen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if Allen wasn't a quarterback, he'd be your strong side linebacker kicking your butt. He'd be beating on your tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Allen is a much different guy, much stronger, more physically. But Justin Herbert he's more athlete than he is just stud. I just think he's a great quarterback, which alarms me because he does run a lot. He opens himself up to taking shots in the pocket. He stands in there, but he's so gifted. I don't know if people can appreciate it. I mean, we've been spoiled. We had Dan Fouts and we had Phillip Rivers. And I mean, they were 2 stars, very different type guys. But this guy he's really different. And he's so smart. He's had, I think, 5 or 6 different offensive coordinators from Oregon through the NFL. No problem. What's the playbook? Got it done.
Right on. Yeah, he's a good guy.
He's not like me. I know he's not like you intellectually.
All right. Moving on. You're always taking shots here, Lee. Okay, let's go to Angel. Back in September, I did say that Bo Nix and the Broncos will be one surprise team. Don't mean to toot my horn, but toot.
Go ahead. Stand up. Thumbs up. Bo Nix is coming a lot faster pace. He's intellectually smart. He's got great feet, moves the pocket, sees the field very well. He's got some guts in him. Not afraid to take some hits, not afraid to run with the football. But boy, he and Sean Payton just seem to be on the same wavelength. And I'd say in the last 2 to 3 weeks, what's changed in Denver, I always thought the receivers were just real underachievers. And I saw things in the last couple of games from Cortland Sutton, their big 6'4" wide receiver, I've never seen. I mean, you talk about running routes and running over people and tough yards after catch. Sutton's doing things I did not ever see. And he was a very highly regarded pick coming out of college. And they got tight ends they throw to. So fast track. I mean, Sean Payton, I think, drafted a, quote, student to the game. And Bo Nix he's a tough hombre, too, in addition to, I think, really being not only a smart guy, but I think he's a bit of a firebrand, too. I think he's a pretty, what's the word I'm looking for? John, bail me out. In the huddle, very dynamic leader.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You get that vibe from him. But now looking back at all the quarterbacks that went in the first round, I mean, if you had to redo the draft, do you think Caleb Williams would be number 1?
Well, the problem, there's a stunning story in Chicago. They've not scored a touchdown in 3 games now with the kid quarterback. 23 possessions without an offensive touchdown.
Wow.
But that's a byproduct of they got all 5 of their offensive linemen are hurt. They've either been knocked out or playing on one leg. So he's running for his life. He's taken 18 sacks in the last 3 games. And he's kind of like a deer in headlights right now. I still think he's so gifted athletically. And he started so well when everybody was healthy. And now the whole thing is eroded around him. So I just think this becomes a washout season in Chicago because of all the injuries. Jaden Daniels, to me, that's the stunner. I didn't think this was possible, because I thought he was a great college quarterback, but he was going to get busted running as much as he did in the NFL. But he's running like he did at LSU, and he's not making mistakes. So, I mean, intellectually, he is really ahead of the curve. I mean, we're going to week 10. I think his quarterback rating is like 110 or 112 right now for a rookie on a bad team. I mean, I don't think anybody in the world can name any of their offensive skill players in Washington. Terry McLaurin, Ohio State. Austin Eckler, part-time running back.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's what they got. And yet Jaden Daniels has him with a 7-3 record, and he's not making mistakes. So he's been impressive. The guy that's come quick in a bad situation is Drake May in New England. He's playing better and better, and he's a big stud. And they're not winning a lot of games because he doesn't have a lot of skill people, but he's not screwing it up, and he's getting pounded. But he's so big and physical. He's able to hang in there and make some plays. So it looks like the Patriots may have gotten themselves a gem at quarterback, but their roster is so ragtag. It's terrible. And then obviously what Bo Nix has accomplished. So those are the marquee names at the top of the draft board. It's so hard when you go to a bad team and your number 1 quarterback and so much is expected of you, and you can't do it by yourself if you don't have people around you.
Yeah, I mean, I just love seeing the young kids have success when they have that it factor and they can make it work.
That's the correct word. Justin Herbert has the it factor. I think Bo Nix has the it factor, and maybe that's got something to do with playing in the Oregon system. I don't know.
Maybe it does. Let's keep going. Talk a little more NFL quarterbacks. What was wrong with Jared Goff, even with the win?
Well, 5 interceptions, but I think 2 or 3 of them were tip balls. So I don't think he was forcing things into coverage. He had some balls that came off hands or off shoulder pads. One might have been tipped at the line of scrimmage, but it is weird to see 5 interceptions in one game and your team won. Because maybe I jinxed him. Didn't I use the word last week, bulletproof?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was not turning the football over. He had his quarterback rating going into that Sunday night game was 111, which is really, really good. So I just think there was a one-off, but they won the freaking game. Houston's got to be heartbroken to have all those takeaways and not win the game. But Houston's offense disappeared in the second half. Holy cow, Detroit just strangled them. C.J. Stroud just, they couldn't move the football. So that was such a strange game. Like I said, there were 5 interceptions in a 7-possession series in the first half. Pick. It's just amazing.
Well, I remember one of them, the ball was tipped, went in the air, someone else tipped it, and then it landed in one of the red jersey players.
Yeah.
It was an amazing game. It was a lot of fun to watch that. But I want to just say, I talk a lot about Dan Campbell and how I like his vibe. D'Amico Ryan is also another special coach.
He's a smart dude.
Yeah, he is.
Came from Frisco.
Yeah. So, I mean, made that game last night really entertaining with those two coaches.
The problem I've got in Houston right now is their top 3 receivers, Stephon Diggs, is gone for the year now with a torn knee ligament. That whole deal blew up in their face. Nico Collins just came off the injured reserve list, and he's trying to play back from an injury. And the third guy, Tank Dell, was hurt before with the knee injury. He's back, but he's not. He's a slight guy. He's smaller. He doesn't quite look like he looked a year ago when he was catching everything. So they should be in the playoffs unless there's a total collapse coming, but they don't seem to have all the guns working. The heavy-duty running back, Joe Mixon, has kind of saved them because he's given them what they haven't had, a tough guy running back. He, of course, came from Cincinnati.
They've come a long way.
Oh, they have.
Yeah.
And C.J. Stroud, I think, is a really quality quarterback.
He really is. And there were a lot of doubts about him when he was drafted. So good for him to be a survivor.
Next question.
Let's go here to Callan. He says, I was going to ask Lee, have you ever been involved in a spat with a player like Marcus Hayes with Joel Embiid?
I usually respected players. And when I was doing talk show radio, they all listened and they'd come back to me. I think the biggest incident I ever had was with Rodney Harrison of the Chargers, the Pro Bowl safety, because he was a headhunter when he came in the league, and he got himself a lot of personal foul penalties, and they got socked with a huge fine. And Bobby Ross criticized him on my talk show, and then I said something to the effect of Rodney, somebody should use the name. What was the New England wide receiver who got paralyzed with a head injury, a neck injury?
Oh, that was with the
Ohio State kid.
Yes, that was with Jack Tatum got him, right?
Yes. You asked me too quick. Anyhow, I said Darryl Stingley. I said somebody should tell Rodney Harrison about Darryl Stingley, because Rodney was launching and using his head all the time. I mean, and he killed a tight end from Cincinnati on a shot over the middle, and Rodney got hit with a huge fine, and that led to the controversy. And I made a comment on the air. Somebody should explain to him about Darryl Stingley. And Rodney got in my face on the next road trip, stopped me on the tarmac and said, "Why did you say that?" And I said, "Because the way you're playing, you're going to get yourself hurt." And Darryl Stingley became a paraplegic because he took a vicious, unfair hit. For the sake of your wife and your kids, I don't want to see you paralyzed. And that was the end of the conversation. And we stayed friends, but we've had some issues along the way. I've had issues with other people. The biggest issue I ever had was with a columnist in Phoenix who had criticized. I was a voice of the Sun Devils doing Arizona State football. And we were going to the Rose Bowl, and we had a tough game. We lost at home or something on a blown play. And this columnist just wrote something horrible about the Sun Devil football team. And I made a crack on the talk show. His gentleman's name was Bob Hurt, was a senior columnist, older guy. And I said, I know Bob Hurt had been in the hospital for a while, and he had had a blood clot. And they saved his life, and that is great. But they must have missed something else, because how the hell could he write this about the Sun Devils? So we were on a road trip, and we're in Arizona. He came down the press box into the radio booth, and his face was red, and he was screaming at me, grabbed me by the throat.
Really?
Yeah. And then he let me go. And he said something to the effect, "You were wrong." And I said, "No, I wasn't, Bob. What you wrote was cheap." And he said, "I'm sorry I acted this way." I said, "You should be sorry." And then he left. And he had me by the throat. I mean, whoa. I'm not going to start throwing punches against an old man. I shouldn't do that.
Well, it seems like in your history, especially here in San Diego, there's always been controversies with you and other media guys.
No, there was some of it was jealousy, some of it was stupidity, some of it was the philosophy of the columnist. Let's go get the guy at the top and let's just write crappy things about him. And why? Because you disagree with something I said. That's fine. We could disagree, but so, and for the most of them, I stayed friends with most all of them. Some I didn't, but there was a guy in Phoenix who's a senior columnist at a paper. His name is Tom Fitzpatrick. He just kept writing horrible things. So I started referring to him as Trash Can Tom nonstop. And then the people at the Arizona State games that hold up a sign, a picture of a garbage can, Trash Can Tom.
They did?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's, and he's making reference to the Marcus Hayes, Philadelphia Inquirer, Joel Embiid story. And I thought Joel Embiid that's columnist was way over the line, making reference to Joel Embiid's deceased brother who was killed and his son. I mean, you can criticize the player for being a bum and all that, but don't drag the family into it because they're innocent people. So you have to draw a line in terms of sports commentary. The other thing, if you're going to do this, you better have the courage to show up in the clubhouse or in the locker room. If you're going to say something negative about players, critical, whatever, face them. Got to face them. Some will be angry. Some will just say, oh, you're just doing your job. That's okay. But my stuff, for the most part, was never really ever personal outside of the Arizona Republic guy that grabbed him by the throat.
Can you describe for me your relationship with Jim Rome?
Kind of unique and different. I was always friends with him. He did well. He had a great career that moved on. He wound up doing the job that I turned down. The people that owned 690 came to me at the height of my popularity and our station's great success and say, we'd like to take your show national. And of course, I was doing a national type talk show with guests and comments and the whole 9 yards. And we met. We talked about it. And I came back to them finally and I said, I have a question. I'm doing an afternoon drive. We're knocking down phenomenal ratings. Why would we want to convert my West Coast-based talk show into a national talk show where we're taking calls and then we get Detroit Red Wing fan wants to ask me a question about the Red Wings in the middle of my afternoon drive show on the West Coast? That makes sense. Mm-hmm. And they thought more about it and they said, yeah, we'll leave it where it is. And next thing you know, they talked to Rome, and Rome was doing the night show at that time. And they said, what do you think about this? And they eventually evolved into Jim, and then they moved Jim to mid-mornings, midday, which is a different time slot in other parts of the country. And he went national. It took him a while to find traction. And we got along okay. I got along really well with his wife. Jim left, and he didn't leave on good terms with people at the station. He was off on his own career, and that's great that he accomplished what he did. But I think he left a bunch of hurt feelings behind. He never said goodbye to anybody, just kind of took off. And he took one of the producers, and he didn't treat the producer very well. Producer came back to work for us again. And then Jim was off on his career. And then I told you the story about the Jim Everett interview in the newsroom. And a lot of people didn't like Jim Rome at that point. And when he made the comment about Chrissy Everett and Jim Everett stood up with his fists clenched, there was a hell of a lot of people in that newsroom were hoping that Jim Everett would throw a punch and knock down Jim Rome. And Jim almost lost his TV job. And his TV job got saved because one of our guys, Chet Forty, went to bat for him.
Really?
And then Jim changed, and he's done great. And, if you like what he does, that's great. If you like what we do, that's great too. Everybody's got, different strokes, different folks.
I've always liked Jim Rome. I remember following him when he was only doing the Scrub Saturdays in the very, very beginning. But you and he seemed to me sort of like brothers that were rivals in a way.
We're all rivals.
Yeah, because you're all like, whose talk show is better? But they were different. You guys were different. The way you are excellent at what you do.
Damn right I am.
And Rome is really good at what
he's found his own niche.
Yeah, exactly.
I concur. It's too bad because all of us who worked at 690 for a long time have now evolved into this podcast or TV or retired or out of work. But I think we all now have a real special appreciation for what we created at 690 as a legendary sports talk station when nobody else in the West Coast had ever been able to do it. And nobody's ever been able to rebrand what we rebranded. And Romy's the only one that's not part of that conversation. He's just not part of us. And now he's living in Los Angeles. He has a different life. He's on TV and all that. But he never came back to, be part of the guys. We throw Christmas parties and get together and when we can. But he's never, ever been part of that, which is too bad. But he did well. He's done really, really well. And he used to bang on me. He called me butter knife. Okay, that's fine. No problem with that, sir. As long as you're talking to your people about my show, that's okay. But boy, he got pissed when I said, that TV show, Welcome Back, Kotter?
Mm-hmm.
Remember the guy, Arnold Horshack? You remind me of Arnold Horshack. And I used to, exactly.
Yeah.
I used to walk down the hallway and say, Horshack's in the building. He got all upset about that, but he's done great. He's had a great, great career. A whole bunch of us have done a lot of really cool and diverse things. And when it was all happening, we had no idea that we could make the legendary Extra Sports 690 what it became. And all of us now take a step back and say, wow, we really did something different in the industry. Because I have management people, program people, they come to me all the time and said, how did you guys accomplish what you accomplished? So we'll tell that story sometime. But, if Romy walked in here, we'd say hi and talk and probably tell some old stories and tell some lies and it'd be okay. But he's had a great, great career. For somebody who looks like Arnold Horshack, I think he's done well.
Yeah, he's done all right. Yeah. Okay.
How about a couple more here?
Okay, let's go to Manny, talk a little college football. What are the chances the Big 12 kicks out Utah after what happened this weekend? If they do, maybe a reunion with the Pac-12 may be in order.
Nah, they're not going to kick him out. They fined the athletic director $40,000. I only saw one angle of the video, and it looked like it sure was a blown call. There was two plays in the fourth quarter of the BYU game, right at the end, that the officials, I thought, botched, which then led to a BYU length of the field drive that got Brigham Young the game-winning field goal to beat Utah. That game was in Salt Lake City before an all-time record 54,000-plus fans in Rice-Eccles Stadium, and the athletic director lost his mind at the press. He held a press conference and he just ripped the Big 12. And the Big 12 late last night fined him $40,000 and put him on warning. You never do this again, or you'll be suspended. So he overreacted, but it was a tough game. But BYU was on the brink of losing, and there were two controversial calls on the final drive that allowed BYU to get first downs and kept the drive going. They went down and kicked the game-winning field goal. They're not going to get kicked out, no.
Speaking of the Big 12, how about Coach Prime? They're rolling.
They are rolling. And the one thing, his coaching staff, he's got a lot of ex-NFL guys on that staff. That offensive front has gotten progressively better and better and better as the season goes on. And Shedeur Sanders is thrown for 290 per game, 3 touchdowns weekly. He's got a great group of receivers, though some of them are now hurt with season-ending injuries. So they're going to go to a bowl game. And I think they're 7-2 now, maybe?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So he's kind of barking about, why are we not rated higher? He's kind of, woe be us. Why are we not rated higher? So, but I don't think they're going to be in the college football playoff, but they're going to go to a marquee bowl game.
Well, I think there's a chance they could get in the playoff. I mean, because who's the top team in the Big 12 right now?
You got me.
Yes. I mean, I think it's anybody's game. I mean, I don't know, like if they are the runner up or they don't make it to the final.
Well, they have to be either first or second to play in the championship game.
Exactly. So I think they have a good shot.
Yeah. Oklahoma State's been a huge disappointment. In fact, Mike Gundy, I think, could be in hot water down there. But the Big 12 is not what the Big 12 was before. It's just, I don't know if it's a down cycle weird year, but it's just been a strange college football season there. But we got, 4 more weeks here before the final poll comes out, and then we'll see who gets ranked where. Going to be interesting.
Going to be interesting. All right. Hey, let's get a few social medias we can squeeze in here. And, okay, this is good. This is from Dodger fan. This is Edster's World. The Dodgers don't need your congratulations or backhanded compliments, Lee. Go drink some warm milk and go back to sleep.
Edster, it's great to have you here, even if you're making that pitch from left field. That's okay. I got Padre fans who are lined up in the parking lot to bark at me too, because they think I've become a Dodger fan. And now you're barking at me because I saluted Dave Roberts. End of the day, they earned it. They deserve it. And it's going to be fun to see what they do next season. And now we have a real rivalry. Dodgers-Padres has now become a real rivalry. Dodger barking at me in San Diego in the offseason of all things.
I know, because everyone is trying to figure out who you're a fan of.
And really, for everybody, I cover the whole bloody story.
But your team are the Indians, right?
We're the Cleveland Indians, yes.
And then maybe to a lesser degree, some of the New York teams.
Nah, I never was a Yankee or Met fan.
No,
I was the only kid I knew on Long Island. I grew up on Long Island. I was the only kid on Long Island that was not a Yankee or Met fan.
Okay, so you're the contrarian.
Yeah.
You're the one on Long Island rooting for the team in Ohio.
The Cleveland Indians. I like Chief Wahoo.
Yeah.
That logo. That's how I fell in love with the Indians.
Right on. Okay, let's keep moving here. We'll go here to the Padre comment from J.O. Cease's market value is $25 million annual. His performance is solid number one. If you don't pay him $14 million, he will take it to arbitration and likely win. The Padres don't want to pay Cease. They should move quickly to trade him. The contract as it stands is valuable. The Tigers, as an example, might be willing to give up MLB top 100 prospect like Chase Young or to add Cease.
Problem is, if you trade Cease and now you don't have Musgrove, now you got two major holes in your starting rotation. And how you going to replace those guys? Cease in arbitration this year, the figure that I was told was 13.8. So they'll probably wind up giving him that. And hopefully he'll become a 30-start pitcher where he gives you a lot of trustworthy starts. Remember, pitched well, fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
They fixed his stride and the location of his glove and his delivery, pitched well, fumbled again, pitched well at the end, and then got misused, I thought, in postseason play. He'll be back, and he'll have one more year before he becomes a free agent, and then we'll see where they are in terms of how he pitches. But he deserves the bump because at 13.8, that's a pretty decent contract for a guy that's going to take the ball 30 times a year.
Plus, he threw a no-hitter for the Padres. Mm-hmm. So you got to bring him back and just pay him what he's worth.
Well, I don't think there's any debate that he'd go somewhere else. No, I don't think he's going to be traded.
But what's the deal with the Padres' finances? Because they're selling out Petco like every night.
Well, the question is, they're raking in so much money. At 56 sellouts, they drew a record $3.3 million. They have raised their ticket prices a combined 50% now over 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the public is paying phenomenal amounts of money. They take all that money in. Is that to spend it for the future, or is that to wipe out the debt that A.J. Preller created over all the mistakes he made financially on contracts for years and years and years? There's a little bit of that going on there. I think they're taking a whole pile of this money to pay back to the Seidlers the amount of money they lost.
Yeah, there might be some of that going on, but even after a 50% ticket increase
over a 4-year window,
over 4-year windows, it's still probably cheaper than going to an Aztec game.
No, not. But the Aztec prices are, I'm sorry, for football are just disgraceful.
Yeah.
Have we ever gotten an Aztec comment on social media or
not today? Not in the podcast.
Not ever.
It's been a while.
What does that tell you?
Yeah.
Fans turn their back on the program. Jeez, they screwed this thing up. Now, Cease will be back. King will be back. And then another question, where do they go get more pitching depth? Fascinating to see. But AJ knows. AJ's got boots on the ground everywhere. He'll find pitchers.
Okay, let's keep going here. We'll let's talk about the college football playoff. This is from Chris Owen saying every team is beatable this year. Matchups will determine who wins the title this year.
Yeah, it'd be fascinating to see how the final ranking comes out. Who's 1, who's 12, and then who plays who and who gets the byes. I mean, I have no doubt that some of these marquee games that we saw during the course of the regular season, I have no doubt we're going to see Oregon State again. We're going to see somebody play Penn State. I don't know where Georgia falls now. That Georgia's got 2 losses on the season. That bears watching. Does Alabama force its way back into the top 12? If they finish this thing on an upbeat note. But we still got a couple more weeks to go in the regular season, and you got the Ducks up there too, which bears watching.
So the first round of there's going to be byes for the top 4 teams.
Yes.
Right? And so the first round are going to be at a home stadium
this year,
but they're not going to be a bowl game, right?
No.
But when you get to the next round,
then they'll surface in, and the Rose Bowl is going to host a game, and the Fiesta Bowl will host maybe a second round or a semifinal game, things like that. Yes. Orange Bowl, Sugar Bowl, etc.
So it's only home field for that first initial round.
Yeah. And I don't like that. I think they should take the first round games, 5 versus 12, etc., put it in the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah, I agree.
Put it in the Sun Bowl in El Paso,
Yeah.
which is kind of a neat event.
Yeah.
Put it in some of these other bowls, the Peach Bowl, etc., and just incorporate them, because otherwise, the Holiday Bowl can sales pitch me, yeah, we're going to have somebody who used to be in the Pac-12 against somebody from the ACC. Okay, but that's not sexy. But if it were a first-round playoff game, yeah. I mean, if you had Boise State coming in here to play the 5th team in the country, that'd be kind of cool.
That'd be Indiana.
Yeah, or somebody.
Yeah.
So that's the way to solve the problem, rather than have home field.
Yeah.
And the fans' responses, some people's responses, well, the hometown fan wouldn't want to travel for a first-round game. Indiana fan wouldn't want to come to San Diego for a first-round game with Boise. They'd save the money to get tickets for a second game. Okay, that's no problem. I'll guarantee a Boise fan will come, and I'll guarantee a San Diego football fan will come, because it's Boise versus Indiana, if that's the 5-12 matchup.
Yeah. But, Indiana fan is going to go to every game possible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the diehards, they'll fly for the first round, the second round, doesn't matter. They're there.
So that's how I would do it. I would not do home field advantage. Because the bowl games are suffering badly now, because now they've really become, I mean, what's the luster of the Rose Bowl if it's not in the playoffs?
Yeah.
You're not getting the top team in the Big Ten. There is no Pac-12 anymore. So make the Holiday Bowl and the Sun Bowl and the Peach Bowl, and, take those first round games, 5 versus 12, 6 versus 11, put them into the bowl games, play them, keep these bowl games at the second tier alive and viable. And then you can take your Orange Bowl and your Sugar Bowl and your Rose Bowl and use them for the second round games, et cetera, before you get to the national championship. That's what I would do if I was king.
I'll sign that memo.
Damn it. All right, let's do one more here before I put a lid on this.
All right, let's go down here. Another Padre comment. And this is from Frank. He says, extend Merrill, extend King, keep a Rise for a season, keep Cease for the season, or trade him in the offseason, especially if the Padres did get Sasaki, sign Higgy to a 1-year and an option. Don't extend Profar unless it's team friendly. Pursue Sasaki as hard as possible. Hot take, trade Suarez and sign and extend Tanner Scott.
Every agent's got a dollar value on their guy. So Higgy's not coming back here for 1 year, 2.5 mil. Higgy's price tag might be 5. Well, you say, well, that's no problem. But if it's 5, 7, and 8, then it is a problem. The other guys, there's always additional dollars attached, and the agents are not bringing these guys back for the prices they played at last season. So it's a tough set of circumstances, because you're going to have to move some money around. But obviously, tough decision with a Rise. The dollar value I was told is 14.8. He's a singles hitter without a position who doesn't run the bases well. That's a lot of money for a singles hitter. Now, if you could get him for 10, maybe you do that on a 1-year deal. But see, he earned 8 last year. Miami paid it all. So for him to go from 8 to 10 after winning another batting title, no, he's probably going to say, I want 8, I want to go to 12, or I want to go to 14. So the agents are always asking here, you're trying to do this here, and you still got all these other players out here on the periphery you still got to deal with too. Tough call, especially if ownership says, no, we're not taking the payroll to $200 million.
I like Frank's hot take.
Frank's got opinion there.
Yeah, it's a good one. Trade Suarez.
I ever get fired, Frank will be doing the podcast with you. He'll be talking down to you too.
What's wrong with you? You should be more friendly around here. I want to get one more in from a Raider fan.
Oh, geez.
Because these guys are always coming after you. And this is from Tom Slick. He says, Lee Butterknife Hamilton has been bitter at the Chargers ever since he was fired as the play-by-play guy. He was terrible then. He's terrible with his sports takes. He's a Raider fan deep down. How they doing, Lee?
Tom, here's the question. If you dislike the host so much, what does it say about you that you are on this podcast every Monday and Thursday at 1 p.m.? So if you don't like the host, what does it say about you and your intellect level? No. Hey, history. I was not fired. The Chargers left our radio station, walked away from all the money we gave them after all the great things we did in broadcast. They went to 3 different radio stations and never, ever had the same package. They're not even on a big station in LA now. They're on a smaller FM station. So get your facts right. Never let the facts get in the way of a distorted opinion. What I do works. What I do has been very successful. as witnessed by the fact Raider Nation fan is here expressing opinions to me. Raiders are a disaster. A lot of work ahead of them. I mean, I hate to throw cold water on you because it's kind of chilly outside, but they have no quarterback. They have no running back. They traded Devontae Adams. I think they have a substandard offensive line. And I'm not sure they got the right head coach. They got a lot of work to do, and it's not going to be solved in 15 minutes, and it's not going to be solved in one off season. It's not going to be solved by one draft. You know, they've always had marquee names. They've had names in starlights, and you thought, wow, this is really going to cook. I thought, when they had Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, and Josh Jacobs, I said, they're turning the corner. And all those guys are gone. And Mark Davis is still the owner. And should I tell him his team is 2-7? Or does he know his team is 2-7?
They're a disgrace.
Me or him?
Both.
Oh. Now, Tom, that's where we are. Raiders got a long road ahead. And I apologize in advance. Their colors are silver and bleak. I mean, they've had no success in the last decade. Not in Vegas on the field, not in Oakland at the tail end of the Al Davis regime. You just had to do that so I'd blow a gasket, get all the cholesterol flushed out of my system, and I'd be healthy and good to go. Right?
What you do is interesting because you are always coming out with one man's opinion and hot takes, and you've got an angle on everything, and you're trying to predict the future. And these guys are armchair quarterbacks on Monday morning.
In the rearview mirror.
In the rearview mirror. So it's easy to criticize it when you make a hot take that doesn't work out. But I'm thinking, like, even in the national news, I don't know if there's really anybody like you. Like that reports on, the non-sports news.
Howard Cosell passed away a long time ago.
Yeah, he was kind of in that category. I agree.
He was the first one to ever do it. And I thought, first time I ever met him in spring training, I said, boy, is this guy bombastic. This guy's good. Got to listen to what this guy says. Don't agree with what the man says, but God, he made Monday Night Football must-see TV just because you wondered, what the hell is he going to say next?
So that was an inspiration for you, Howard Cosell.
I didn't realize it back then, but yeah, probably now. Exactly.
Kind of cool. One thing I liked about Cosell is his relationship with Muhammad Ali.
Oh, yeah.
And they kind of get in there and they start fighting. But, I mean, he was an interesting dude. He was buddies with John Lennon, too.
He was a lawyer.
That's right.
He was an unbelievable intellect. He always called me young man. Young man. I asked him, ran into him at spring training over in Yuma. And I said, Howard, I grew up on Long Island. I watched you in the early days when you were in New York on WABC. And I said, I'd love to spend 10, 15 minutes with you just talking sports. Going to do an interview for my West Coast talk show. Well, young man, when I get done talking to such and such, I'd be glad to sit down with you. So why don't you meet me in about 15 minutes, young man? Yeah, and of course, a lot of people don't know he was 6'4".
Oh, really?
And he had a big booming voice. God, I wish I had his pipes. But he'd speak and the world would stop and listen. I liked him. He was different. I didn't always agree with him, but that's okay. And then after a while, I understood there was a lot of theatrics to what he did.
Oh, yeah.
So if I'm like him, I guess that works.
It works.
Raider Tom doesn't agree, but that's okay. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed our podcast. We're here Mondays at 1 p.m. West Coast time, Thursdays at 1 p.m. West Coast time, and we hope you'll be part of Fans Forum and just continue to contribute. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 locations to serve you. Rejoin us Thursday at 1. Want you to share. Tell your friends what we're doing. Want you to subscribe. That way you'll get the alerts every time we put something up on the YouTube channel. Check my website. I am opinionated. It is bleeping brilliant. You check it every morning. You won't believe the volume of information that is available. And follow me on social media. We're trying to get me to 10,000 followers. Will you join me? Just go to @Hacksaw1090, @Hacksaw1090. Hit the follow button. Agree? Disagree? I don't care. I know this. You'll know everything there is in the world of sports. John, take a deep breath, because Thursday we're going to preview huge games on the Thursday show going towards the NFL Great Sports Weekend.
Down at Firefighter.
He never knew what he was getting involved in when he convinced me to do this podcast.
This is great. I mean, just hanging with you is awesome.
You're full of crap. Hey, have yourself a great day. We'll see you come Thursday. As always, on behalf of everybody here, Thanks for being part of Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast app.
Touchdown, San Diego!
For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.